This week in the field, a Q&A episode. You've asked a bunch of questions, I've got a bunch of answers. Hi everybody, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome to In the Field. I'm doing a Q&A episode this week, and for the most part, actually, a lot of these questions are ending up more on the post-processing side of things, but I'm due for a Q&A episode, and I have something else planned for in post, a little more of an in-depth question that needs a lot of explanation. So we're going to do some of those post questions in today's episode. Before we get started, if you have questions, please send them in. You can contact me directly through my website. Your questions help unbelievably. You wouldn't know how much they help. They help shape the show. They help hopefully everybody who's getting answers to these questions, and they help me make me think about my photography, and it's upside all around. So with that, let's get to this set of questions. The first question is from Jacques in Canada. Jacques is considering moving to a full frame body, and he's looking at the Nikon D750 and the Sony A7R. He knows I shoot Sony, so he asked me for my thoughts on the Sony. Well, let me take a step back and just say that both of those cameras are great. You know, it's actually getting very, very difficult to buy a bad camera. You know, if you're really making that move to a larger system or a full frame, the cameras we have available today are just so good. Everything, you get a good exposure, you've got plenty of good features. So I think what you need to do is take a look at the surround of your camera body. What's your shooting ecosystem? A couple of things to think about is what are your subjects that you shoot? If you're shooting a lot of fast motion, wildlife or sports, I think the DSLRs still have the better focusing system. Mirrorless is catching up. There's a new Fuji, I think X-T2, that's coming out that has a snappier focusing system. It sounds pretty good from the early reviews I've seen around the internet. But other than that, I think you need to then look at what are the features that are important to you. Stuff that I like about the Sony is focus peaking. That's a big one where you get a visual representation on the back of the camera of what is and is not in focus. And coupled with that, there is this manual focus assist. So you can use the autofocus to get your basic focus. And then you can manually adjust the focus ring on your lens. And the camera zooms in to wherever you tell it to zoom into. And you can really get that one area of your photo that you want really, really crisp. Now, great for landscapes, not very great for a moving subject because something's not going to stay still that long. So then in that focusing speed and thing like that. Other thing on focusing with the Sony is focus points. I like that the focus points go all the way to the edges everywhere in effectively the visible space on the LCD, where Nikon cameras have kind of like that cross in the middle where you can move your focus points around those areas, but that's it. And you have a little more. Sometimes you have a little more work to do with focus, lock the focus in, recompose if you've got something you want in a foreground that's not inside that focus cross. I'm not sure what they call it. So those are some things to think about. What other lenses do you have that are you looking at buying all new lenses? Are you looking at using adapters? There are adapters for mirrorless cameras. I know there's an adapter for the Sony A7R, for Nikon lens, for Canon lenses. But if you've got any older lenses or esoteric lenses, making sure that they work with that adapter would be some other things to check out. Last thought is battery life. The mirrorless cameras in general do not have as good a battery life as the DSLRs. They're smaller batteries. They want to, mirrorless sells you on keeping things light. It means a smaller battery. Where with my Nikon D7000, I'd be able to go out with that for a full day, single battery, fully charged, not ever have to worry about it. With the Sony, after a couple of hours, I've got to make sure I don't run out of battery. I need to bring several batteries with me for a full day shoot. So that's something else to take a look at. Hope that helps you out, Jacques, and have fun with your new camera. Luis in Texas asked, I'm round tripping a photo from Lightroom to On1, and when I get into On1, the Layers module isn't active. Why? So my thought here, Luis, is that it's something to do with the file format that you're choosing to send images from Lightroom into On1 with. I think there's 4 choices. You've got JPEG, or maybe there's 3 choices: JPEG, TIFF, and PSD, right? And yes, JPEG doesn't support layers, so that would be one reason that layers isn't active. TIFF does, although my experience with On1 is it wants to use PSD for layering. You know, TIFF in theory has got layers built into it, but I haven't seen that work correctly with On1. I always send things as PSD. So that's my first thought. So checking your Lightroom preferences for the external editors and any specific tweaking and tuning that you do in that pane for individual plugins to make sure you've selected PSD as the file type. You can also double check that on the On1 side and On1 preferences. You know, there's a Lightroom panel in their preferences, making sure you're picking PSD as the file format and, you know, matching everything up. I'd go ahead and match everything, including color space, DPI, because there's no reason not to. And while we're on the topic, color space, I use Pro Photo RGB for all of the stuff that, you know, gets passed around between programs in the computer, because that's a very, you know, rich color space. It's what Lightroom uses internally. It's what Photoshop uses internally. I may as well not buck the tools and just keep using that. And you can export as anything else you want, sRGB for the web, for example. So check your preferences and check your file formats, and that should clean up the problem. Mike in Canada had another round-tripping question, also going from Lightroom to On1, or actually any plugin, I believe he said. And so what happens is he's round-tripping a photo, it goes out to, let's say, On1, he comes back into Lightroom and he can't find the photo he just worked on in the plugin. So a couple of thoughts. The first one is a little more simplistic in the sense of how to fix it. There is, at the bottom of a folder or collection in Lightroom, you'll see a sort by you know, pull down or you know, pop-up menu. And there's a couple of choices in there. One of them is by capture time. Now, if you have it sorted by capture time is maintained when you round trip to a plugin and back. And so you should see the resulting photo right next to the photo that, you know, your original photo in your collection or in your folder. If that sorting option is set to date added, that will be different for the round-tripped photo, because it got added to Lightroom, you know, days, weeks, perhaps months or years after you added your original. So that'll be way at the bottom of the you know, preview window in your grid view. So that's one thing to check. Now the other one that's less obvious, and this is the one that bites me quite a bit, is the previous import collection. You know, it's in the catalog area of the library module on the left-hand side. When you import a bunch of photos, Lightroom says, well, the last set of things you imported, I'm going to put into this previous import, you know, collection. And it's very useful because you can quickly be working on the new photos I've just added. And the glitch, I guess you'd say, or the thing that doesn't make intuitive sense, is now I round trip a photo. I send something out to a plugin, I bring it back. Well, what I've brought back, that was not part of a previous import. So it's not in the previous import collection. You've got to go look in the folder that your original photo is in to find what you've round tripped. And you know, I get bit by that about, you know, once every couple of weeks, and I go, oh yeah, and go find it in the folder and then work on it, you know, if I have to do any other tweaks or metadata changes or what have you. So that one, you know, check out that one as well. Those are a couple of things I can think of as to why you can't find that round-tripped photo. Last question is, Rich saw a short video I did on focus stacking, and I'm using Photoshop to do that. And he asked, can I focus stack an On1? I think the short answer is no. There is no focus stacking option per se in the On1 suite of products in On1 Photo. Now, you could do focus stacking if you get into masking, but the scene that you're working with or the set of photos that you're working with, I think would need to be mask friendly, let's say. Otherwise, you're looking at a huge masking job. So picture this: you're in a field. There's a rock in the foreground, a grassy meadow, and a big mountain in the background. And there's clean separation horizontally across your frame from the rock. Between the rock and the mountain, all you've got is a bunch of grass. So you could take 3 shots, focus on the rock, focus on the grass, focus on the mountain, and then using like a masking bug, you know, gradient shape, and just mask the 3 different images together to get the most sections in focus that you wanted. Now, it's kind of like a poor version of automated focus stacking. But now replace that rock with a tree that extends up and fills the entire frame. So you can still take a shot focused on the tree, take a shot focused in the midground, and take a shot focused on the mountain. But your masking job just became a whole lot bigger because you have this tree that covers and encompasses the entire frame. So that's where things start to fall apart. And I would say at that stage, doing a focus stacking effort in on one becomes, I wouldn't call it a fool's errand, but certainly heavy lifting. If you're not using Photoshop, you either look for another tool that does focus stacking, or solicit focus stacking from On1. Maybe enough people say we want focus stacking in On1, and they'll add it in for Photo 11 or Photo 12 or whenever the next drop of On1 photo we get. So that's the story on focus stacking. Photoshop makes it very easy. There may be some other tools out there that can do it automatically for you as well. That does it for this week in the field. Hope you've enjoyed the Q&A episode. If you've got questions, please send them in. Love hearing your questions. And I'll get you an answer in relatively short order. You don't have to wait around for me to do another one of these Q&A videos to get an answer. That would be cruel and unjust punishment. So go ahead, send them in. You'll get an answer right away, and maybe I'll share one of your questions on the show. So until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Happy shooting.